hyvää huomenta KIRAHubin Tietoiskusta täältä Urban 3 tilasta Marianolla ykkösestä. On tällä kertaa ensimmäisen tuotantokauden viimeinen Tietoisku-jakso tänään. Ja vieraana meillä on Natalia Rincón CHAOSilta, mutta sitä ennen katsotaan vähän, mitä KIRAHubin toiminnassa tapahtuu. Ja muutamia nostoja ehkä ensimmäisenä meidän VDB-tapahtuma, joka nyt on pyörinyt läpi tämän vuoden, ja meillä on järjestettynä erilaisia community session ennakkotapahtumia kohti syyskuun päätapahtumaa, ja nyt on julkistettu meidän keynote-puhujia 6 kappaletta, ja lisää on vielä tulossa, mutta voitte käydä lukemassa vdb.org-sivustolta heistä lisää, jos vielä suoraan nimet ei sano, mutta ollaan todella innoissamme näistä puhujista, jotka ollaan saatu mukaan. Ja vielä muistutuksena se, että kuun loppuun asti meillä on toi early bird-hinta tarjolla, eli hyvin edulliseen hintaan voi napata itselleen 2 päivän lipun tuonne päätapahtumaan, ja siellä on luvassa yli 50 puheenvuoroa näiden keynote-puhujien lisäksi rakennetun ympäristön kestävän digitalisaation teemoista. Eli hyvä paketti varata jo sinne syyskuulle, ja katsotaan, jos pystytään järjestämään virtuaalitapahtuman lisäksi myös jonkunlaista kokoontumista sitten täällä Marjassa tai sitten myöskin Virossa ja Tanskassa, jotka ovat mukana järjestämässä meidän tapahtumaa. Ja hiljattain eilen julkaistiin myös meidän yhteistyötapahtuma A-insinöörien kanssa Boost for Startups-teemalla. Jutellaan vähän siitä, että miten meidän KIRA-ala voi tukea startup-toimijoita ja innovaatioiden kehittymistä, mitkä ovat eri toimijoiden roolit tässä. Eli 31. päivä elokuuta iltapäivästä on luvassa tämän tyyppinen tilaisuus, ja silloin voi tulla jo mahdollisesti tänne paikan päälle Urban 3 tilaan, mutta myös etänä pääsee kuuntelemaan keskustelua, ja silloin myöskin Virosta ja Tanskasta meidän kumppaniorganisaatiot Digital Construction Cluster ja BlogsHub mukana keskustelussa. Ja koko puhujalista löytyy meidän nettisivulta. Sitten vielä Ryhti-hankkeen kuulumisia. 2 kappaletta erinomaisia artikkeleita tullut Anssi Hänniseltä ja Juhana Rautiaiselta tiedon yhteentoimivuuteen liittyen ja tiedon arvoon liittyen, ja loistavia nostoja molemmilta asiantuntijoilta. Ja Uusikava podcast on pyörinyt tässä tämän vuoden, ja siellä viimeisimmässä jaksossa meidän toimari Teemu Lehtinen juttelee siitä, että millainen se älykoti oikeasti on ja mitä kaikkea kommervenkkejä siihen liittyy ja pitääkö meillä olla älykoteja. Mutta tämän alustuksen jälkeen annan puheenvuoron Natalialle ja vaihdetaan kieltä vielä viimeiseen tietoiskuun.
Yes.
We are guest Natalia.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and very nice to be here as well. Like I admire this hub a lot, so it's nice always to be here. But yeah, like maybe I can just give you a brief understanding of who I am, and then just like what CHAOS does. And yeah. But let's see this. So I'm coming from CHAOS. I'm CEO there and co-founder as well. We have been established already 3 years here in Maria as well. And we are forecasting cities. So very concretely, like we're very focusing the holistic view of cities in order to get market analysis of locations and really understand what's going to happen with different levels of the city, like in the future as well. Yeah. And well, just to tell a bit about CHAOS, like maybe I stop there, but our vision is really livable cities. And we hear a lot about this like sustainability discussion, and are we sustainable? Are we happy also here in Helsinki, the happiness level? And I think these are all topics which are very subjective, and we don't know actually what the outcome would really be until we start measuring cities. So CHAOS comes from that perspective that we just have to measure like what's happening, and then figure out really if we are livable, if we are happy, we are sustainable, like and then take actions from there. I think this is really what has been missing overall, like in city development, but also in the real estate environment. Yeah, I think that maybe from that perspective, I don't want to bore you with a lot of pitch decks here, but I think that's a higher vision of chaos, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think it has some resemblance to kind of what the cultural actors have had towards city life. They have the ear close to the streets, listening to the citizens, and somewhere along the way, we lost that in urban planning and kind of city development. And now with this kind of data-driven insights, we're getting back to that. So we know how and why people act with real estate, for example, in a certain way, or a city a certain way. And you recently did a study on millennial home buying.
Yes.
And how do you see from that study that what are the kind of differences in how the millennials see real estate and what they value in it?
Yeah, that was very interesting, because maybe before I comment on that, I am thinking of a topic that that I have an architecture background. So in architecture, they're always telling you, like, you have to understand the environment. Hopefully you don't become those kind of architects that just want to have a piece of art and it's not functional. So growing up in architecture, you're always focused like in understanding the people. And I remember one time in Tampere, I sat in a coffee shop and I put a video camera and I recorded the passers, like between Stockman, in this Tuomiokirkon katu, like a street. And I wanted to understand, like, why people were just walking by or strolling. Because for me, the street always has needed something extra, like more urban and really nice. So I recorded a lot of passers, like in bicycles or very quickly shopping, or some ones that were strolling and some that were just like looking around. I don't know what they were looking around, but anyways, like after the video, I counted one by one, like saying that how many of these ones were actually like passing and strolling and having bikes. That was very manual process, and that's data overall. So it got me thinking that these things, I cannot do these forever. So what are the things that we can actually automate? And someone from our team also said that, very nice, our tech lead, like, I'm a lazy person, so I automate everything. And that's what we actually want to bring here. It's like, we are lazy, so we want to automate. And if you automate the generation of data or people, and not going in any GDPR or anything, like, we're not using even people for marketing, but actually just documenting, like, then we take better decisions. And long story short, but the reason for this, like, is that you really get very interested in, like, where are the people and how are they driving real estate, like, overall. So for us, the demand or the focus in people is very important. And typically this, like, chicken and egg problem, that do you have the built environment and then people come, or do you have then people and then the built environment comes? And there's like a question there is, like, to answer that, you have to understand, like, how many offices we have vacant in Helsinki, or how many apartments we have vacant, and then match that with how many homeless we have. So you really have to understand that, are we really meeting that demand or supply? So that's what we are figuring out in here. And going to your question, like, with my very long answer, there was like this article you mentioned about the millennials. There's a lot of discussion, and actually I have to ask you, like, do you consider yourself a millennial? So am I. So and then there's a lot of discussion, like, millennials are not investing in homes, and like they don't have money, or their habits are changing. So I am a city lover, and I want to be in the city center, but I'm also like nature lover. So then I have this dichotomy. And a long time of my years, I have been living in the city center. And then when we were doing this article, we were checking, like, okay, where is everyone living? And then we took this approach, like, okay, let's take a look at the millennial generation, like the ages and so on. And we discovered that the concentration of them are like in here in the map, like a lot in the city center of Helsinki, some also in the outskirts of Helsinki. And we started to figure like, why is it like this? And like, what is it telling us about millennials overall? And then there's another question that real estate builder, like investors ask that, hey, are millennials gonna buy like in the city center, or are they moving outskirts, or what's happening there? And there's this trend that also, because millennials like to invest, they think that real estate is a good investment. They start thinking that they're gonna move outskirts, like, and we're gonna be seeing this shift. And then we wanted to understand that, is it true like that? So to answer that, we figure out that the majority, even though we have in the outskirts, like the millennials, the majority of that percentage is actually in the city center. And do you guess where they were? I think it's the trendiest area.
Yeah, so probably Kallio and Punavuori.
Yes, in Kallio and Punavuori and so on. And they're located there. And then we figure, like, okay, so it's actually not true that they live in the outskirts. They're not investing out, but does that continue actually? Because Kallio is like workers, district.
Yep.
And if we take a look at New York, how the loft started and everything, it's like the artists went to the lofts because it was cheap.
Yep.
As we are here, the startups are in Maria because it's cheap.
Yep.
So any movement starts when the real estate actually is cheap.
Yep.
And those are the younger ones, the ones that want to be productive in society, is these generations that start the movement. But now Kallio is actually quite expensive. So what's going to happen with the demand and the supply there? So even though they're located there, we also checked that the forecast that we're having actually shows that the millennials, I don't know if you see it well, but the yellow line is decreasing in those areas. And it makes sense because we did another study, I'm not sharing here, but we look at the density. It's very well supplied, but it's like already full. The stock is full. Yeah. So where are these millennials then finding new places? They're moving to Itis side or to Vuosaari, where the actually new Kallio is gonna be.
Yeah.
And we have these conversations with other millennials, other friends, and they say like, yeah, that's the new trendiest place, like Vuosaari and so on.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a young like neighborhood, the rents are down, like then you can start transferring that. And then we see companies with much more established and cachet and so on moving into Kallio, which eventually raises also the price.
Yeah.
So this is what we understand also through data, that it's people drive valuations, people drive movements, and they drive other things like investments and services. So we're really focused in this, and this is something that we also want to show overall.
Yeah. You briefly touched on that, kind of saying that the artists move to the lofts. How about here with Vuosaari and certain different areas? Have they had that kind of certain edge that because that's kind of very distinctive characteristics towards millennials, that they kind of feel on a global level and they pull their references from this kind of global city culture and so forth. So once some of those bits and pieces of that culture appear in Vuosaari, for example, it becomes kind of interesting destination for them. So is that needed, or is it only the kind of basic things of real estate and home why they are moving in there?
Actually, that's a very good question, and we can answer different ways, but I definitely think it's needed, like a balance. It's not just the pricing. And I give you an example, like which we will actually have another article on this, but we were looking for an office now, and we compared Kallio and Ruoholahti. And we were having negative comments about Ruoholahti. For us, like we were like, no, it's the same. And then when we looked at the services and the pricing and everything, they seem to have the same pricing, but the balance of services is not there. And when you have only the pricing, that's not enough. So you're very right in that you have to have a diverse balance, like demographic, but also services. And I think that's what's happening in Vuosaari right now. You have nature, you have services, you have a very well-balanced demographic there, and you have social life. That's what creates social life. And then it starts to be like Kallio is now, like a lot of services and bars and people just hang in the streets. So I think we will see that as well.
And you probably don't know that my background is in economic geography. So I have a different kind of view towards this.
It's interesting. Like, what is your view? I want to hear.
So for me, I'm looking a bit, we discussed this with Ken Dooley from Aalto University in a recent Tietoisku as well, but it comes down to location theory also, that when these shifts start to happen in Vuosaari, for example, the way people think about that area is that for ages they've been looking from Vuosaari towards Helsinki city center. But when those things, services and those kind of different features that feel close to millennials start to appear there, whether it's culture or restaurants or so forth, so the view of the inhabitants of that district comes to basically center of Vuosaari. So maybe you a bit turn your back towards Helsinki, and then kind of that accelerates all that development. And that's very close to the kind of, for example, what Tällä has suggested, that kind of transportation cost is the basis of everything. And then that's about kind of your mental idea towards how much you invest in traveling towards city center. Is that really needed to travel to a city center because there are nice restaurants here, and actually this feels like a comfy district and ease of life in the same sense that in Kallio everything is there.
Yes, I think I agree with you. Actually, I don't disagree. I think that that's very true. I think, and you're also touching another concept, which is a 15-minute city, which is very trendy right now. But this has been studied over decades by urban planners. But a 15-minute city overall also tells you that how comfortable you are to walk 1 kilometer. And if you have read this book, The Triumph of the City, and also, am I remembering right, where we are discussing like how, or the book goes around that we are ready to commute certain amount of time. After 1 hour of commuting, wherever, like a car or metro, whatever, it starts to feel like a burden. And when that piles up, you don't want to do that anymore. So you're right in that aside from the transportation costs, like how much effort does it take you to, even though you have the public transport, to commute from Vuosaari to Helsinki for 1 bar, if you have it there. So then you start creating a 15-minute city center in Vuosaari, and that starts to prosper as well, which is good, I think. Also, you need these nodes around the cities. Also,
that's great. I live in Turku, so that's a 15-minute city. You can get anywhere in 15 minutes.
Turku, come on.
But hey, before I ask you to kind of have kind of top 3 takeaways for today's kind of your insight from chaos, can you briefly tell about your background? You have studied computer science, right? So what has taken you to be where you are today and your work?
Interesting. I'm not sure I can answer that, but I studied computer science. I was working in big companies like in North America with IBM and EDS. I was dealing with big accounts in the automotive industry, so it was super exciting. We always had the latest tech there, like the latest laptops, latest Mustang also when it was coming. So you got to see everything. And I really like that, to be on top of the innovation. But at the end of the day, it was a corporation. And I felt that I'm not that kind of person from 9 to 5, that I really want to do something more meaningful. I'm a millennial, so it's in my DNA. I want to do meaningful things. So, But in any case, like I also had this architecture side. So my brains are very left and very right. Like I need art, but I need data or facts.
Yeah.
And I think when I was in architecture, I really felt this passion always driven to the social side, to the urban planning. Like, why are we building a sculpture here? Why are we building a theater or whatever? And that slowly came with this me questioning, why are we doing the things still like this? And probably my engineering side was there, kind of figuring out that we can actually do it better. And I think still that's an asset right now when we are working with real estate, because we bring a different perspective of how things actually can be done. So has been really interesting also to engage in discussions with how the real estate sees overall, like valuations and assets and so on.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be your top 3 takeaways for the real estate business to learn from your approach, data-driven urban planning?
Well, maybe I can end actually, with one slide that I had here. Yes, this one. So we are very used to do valuations, like based on assets. And this is a macroeconomic thing. Banks are supporting the assets, they're backing up them up.
Yeah.
But people is a driver for that. This is demand and supply, basically. If there's no people, then the asset goes down and so on. And then we have this bubble that happened in 2008. So I think here the first one is people. Like the valuations are also affected by people, by demand, but how they behave and their preferences. The second one is like maybe more like an invitation to the real estate that we can't get different results by doing the things as we are used to. So I think, and maybe I speak for all the startups in PropTech here, that there has to be opportunity to test new things in different ways. We can't just say that I need to do it still my way. So you have to be open for that, to adopt PropTech solutions. And well, the third one is that maybe just like look at a more holistic point of view. Like if we start sharing more data all over, like I think the ecosystem will benefit. It's not just like my data is this one. That's not useful. It's useful only when it becomes an insight. So insights would be the third takeaway.
A little twist to that. For me, having a master's in business admin, that's marketing. That's the very basic structure of how we understand consumer behavior.
Yes.
And to me, that's been kind of very insightful findings in my 10 years in real estate and construction industry, that we don't know the basic of marketing. And this is kind of not at all to lowball any of the marketing people in there, but this is kind of looking at the valuation types. We need to understand the way we have done it for.
And you're very right, actually. I had a conversation this week after the elections results, and someone told me that, did you know that actually marketing principles are based in political, like door-to-door adopted from the US? And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about this. And now that you bring it, it's like the same principle. It's that when you understand the user's preferences, like who they vote for or what they buy, then you understand where they want to live.
Yeah, and taking from business school, there's another interesting layer that when looking at the curriculum structure, economic geography is under marketing.
Yeah, so, look, I'm learning a lot from you here. Yes, I think super interesting. They're all connected, and I think that's a final takeaway.
Let's see.
Is real estate actually marketing?
Yeah. You just need to switch it from the department to another.
Yes, definitely.
in our operation.
Now we are creating a disciplinary multi-studies. Like here, like we should propose this.
Yeah. On a different note towards what we had previously on Tietoisku, we have kind of 5 minutes to go, and this time we don't have any new episodes coming up. I would like to kind of, the whole idea of this Tietoisku is to inspire people about kind of new solutions and new findings from our industry. What are the things that inspire you in your work? Is it inside from this industry or outside?
Well, this is very boring maybe, but it's people actually. So it's inspiring, and you think of our team. I have like a great team, great also, well, team that backs us up as well, like board advisors and so on. That motivates me. And again, also when I ask the team, like, where do you see CHAOS going in the future? And they answer people also. That's motivating because we have made a clear, and this is against going and against marketing, but we don't sell people's information for marketing. That's very clear for us, and we sell it for livable cities, and that it's my driver. That's what motivates me.
Yeah, and that's an interesting take on from this kind of smart city development and from this kind of new age urban planning, if that's a term that we can use, that going against big tech companies, the things that Facebook and so forth have done to our data, that now we are guarding that data that we use for urban planning and making sure that people feel safe. That at the same time we are using this data, learning from it to help us cater to you, but also we are going to be on your side as cities in this fight against these kind of tech companies now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a kind of very interesting interface. Yeah. So what's next for CHAOS?
Well, now we moved to a new office. You can find us there, like from Maria to Punavuori to Pursimiehenkatu. So we will be moving after Johannes, and then very, very next, like in August, you will see super interesting releases related to demand and supply, like where to find the gaps. And that has been the holy grail of the industry, I think. So very excited to the autumn that we have ahead.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes. Yeah, and thank you for watching as well.
Welcome. Welcome on board.
Yes.
Ehkä tähän pikkuhiljaa lopetellaan tämän päivän keskustelua. Ja tosiaan muistutuksena siis se, että kaikki tietoiskut löytyy tuolta KIRAHub.org kautta Tietoiskut-sivustolta. Sieltä pääsee katselemaan jokaisen jakson, ja totta kai ne löytyy myös meidän sosiaalisen median kanavista myöskin tallenteina. Olette ehkä niihin törmänneet siellä aika ajoittain, mutta siis koko toimintamallin idea on myös se, että saatte itse ehdottaa aiheita tänne mukaan, ja ihan oikeasti saa ehdottaa myös itseään. Eli mikäli haluat tulla kertomaan jostakin teille ajankohtaisesta asiasta tai uudesta palvelusta, mikä liittyy rakennetun ympäristön digitalisaatioon ja etenkin kestävään digitalisaatioon, niin kurkatkaa sieltä Tietoisku-sivulta ohjeet, miten voitte tulla mukaan, ja etsitään sopivat ajankohdat. Jonkun verran on syksyn aikoja jo varattu, mutta tilaa sieltä kyllä löytyy, ja ajatuksena KIRAHubilla on ollut ihan alusta asti myös se, että mitä enemmän näitä ratkaisuja meillä kertyy, mitä käsitellään, niin tuodaan niitä myös tänne Urban 3-tilaan sekä ihan tänne meidän digitaaliseen showroomiin esiteltäväksi, kun nyt maailma avautuu ja saadaan kansainvälisiä delegaatioitakin jälleen tänne vieraaksi, mutta myös ihan meidän tärkeille suomalaisille sidosryhmille täällä. Ja se, että tuodaan niitä ratkaisuja myöskin ihan esiteltäväksi tänne käytössä, eli meiltä löytyy täältä jo jonkun verran ratkaisuja, muun muassa Iisin ympäristöhallintajärjestelmää ja Naavan viherseinää, ja nyt saadaan, kun toimisto alkaa täyttää, niin saadaan myöskin Frameriltä uudet heidän viimeisimmät podit tänne käyttöön, niin saa toimistorauhakin säilyä ja käyttöasteet saadaan hyvin korkealle ja elämää tänne Urban 3-tilaan. Eli tämmöinen kokonaisuus on mahdollista täällä, ja yhä enemmän toivottavasti päästään avaamaan tapahtumiakin, ja niin kuin sanoin, niin A-insinöörien kanssa tuleva tapahtuma on ensimmäinen, jossa pääsee myös yleisöä paikalle. Mutta kiitoksia tästä Tietoiskut tuotantokaudesta, ja palataan syksyllä uusien jaksojen kanssa. Ei muuta kuin oikein mukavaa kesäistä perjantaita. Moi moi!